Hey there, Pete Erickson here with Modev with another installment of our Meet the Speakers series for voice and AI coming up September 5th through 7th in Washington, D.C. Get all the details at voiceand.ai. And today I'm really excited to be able to talk to somebody I've known for many years. We've actually done quite a bit of work together. We even traveled together, did some workshops around the first iteration of conversational design and voice. And my guest is Roger Kibbe with Samsung. He is a Senior Developer Evangelist, and he's going to be leading two talks at Voice and AI, the first of which is a pre-conference workshop on mastering the art of generative AI. So a lot to talk about with Roger. Bring him up to the stage now. Mr. Roger Kibbe, welcome to the stage. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Pete. Good to see you. Indeed, it's been, I don't know, I met you 5-6 years ago, something like that, and things. And we've done a bunch together. So I'm excited to do the conference in about 3 weeks from now. So that will be
amazing. We're 3 weeks out, and I'm perfectly calm and cool and collected. So and in all seriousness, I think now is sort of like we get to the point where there's a lot of details that happen, and lots of people come in late to the event and want to get involved, which is great, but it's been, building events like this takes, 10, 11 months of really hard work. And so now we can start to enjoy it. So with 3 weeks to go, we can see the finish line. We can see that it's going to be a fantastic event. And that's due in large part that we have amazing speakers coming from around the world, you included. So it's great to have you back this year.
I'm excited to be back, and the conference looks amazing. I'm excited to present, but I'm even more excited to see all the people and see all those other amazing presentations and really have discussions with people. I mean,
we're going to see a lot of familiar faces there. You and I have been in this market for a long time. And I mentioned in the intro, we toured together back when we were doing some work with Samsung Bixby and doing workshops and developer workshops and getting people really used to the idea of building for conversational interfaces, But now we're sort of in this new era, right? This post-chat GPT era that's really it's almost like the way I would kind of blown the doors open on natural language and generative AI for the market. But I would love to get your take as somebody who's been, at the forefront of developers for, a long time. What do you think? We're 8 months post-chat GPT and what does this new world look like according to Roger Kibbe?
Yeah, I think it's amazing what it's done in the industry. I think we're, before it came out, to be honest, conversational AI in some ways was stagnating. Not on the B2B side, because that's where a lot of the energy and a lot of the value was coming on. But a lot of the kind of consumer facing applications, it was kind of becoming a little bit passe or less interest there and things. And I think we kind of run into some of the limits of kind of the old NLU technology. And then, GPT-3 had been out for a while, but OpenAI did this amazing thing and trained it to be, a chatbot. And all of a sudden it just blew up. And I think it just got everyone excited to go, hey, my old way of thinking about what a conversational interface could or could not be, which is completely blown up. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, this is amazing. The fact that I can ask this thing, a question 20 different ways and understands it is completely revolutionary versus the older way of thinking about technology wise, which I still think has some value, but it's really exciting. And I think it's one of the first consumer level applications where people really start going, okay, this is what AI is all about. And lots of excitement and lots of fear there. But I think all of us in the industry have been seeing AI kind of do these things. So when we've read about these things and we've seen it, but I got to tell you, it's a different story when I'm sitting on my desktop and I type something and I can see, something funny, write a poem about this, or help me create this presentation. Right. I'm doing that right now for what I'm going to be talking about in 3 weeks. And we're just using Claude, Anthropic, it was like the best at it, actually. So I think that's super exciting, and it makes AI a reality, even for us who are in the industry. It's like right there in front of you, and I think it's just exciting, and I think we've gotten very energized in the field about this. So
Yeah, it's definitely ejected the market with energy. And I think, as you had mentioned, what happened, I think, is, there was the trough of disillusionment on voice skills as a monetization platform, right? So
Hmm.
that was became really sort of apparent really it started to become apparent at the end of 2019. So as we went into the pandemic, that hype cycle really moved out.
Hmm.
And there needed to be something new. Even at last year's conference, last October, we did the first installment of Voice Post Pandemic, a smaller iteration of it, but it was very enterprise centric. It was about
Hmm.
contact center modernization. It was about CX automation. It was about custom chatbots for your bank, right? And then what ChatGPT did, I think, it was a bit of that iPhone moment, right? That, wait a minute, here's a new way to interface and a new way to for people to communicate with one another. And that's, the iPhone changed the market forever. And there were long-standing, huge, Nokia and Motorola and other major handset manufacturers, Ericsson. They owned the world. It was not going to be that was not going to change, right? Nobody saw this coming, right? And it changed. And so ChatGPT, OpenAI have they were the catalyst for that change. And yeah, as you mentioned, now we've got all the foundational large language models that are pretty good. But it's interesting, I think, your experience in noticing that Claude is maybe a better platform. When I compare ChatGPT with Bard and Claude or Perplexity, it
Hmm.
is interesting to see the difference. So it's early times, and generative AI is in its early days, but huge adoption.
Yeah, and Claude's been, for what I wanted to do, it was good at it. I think one of the things that we're learning is that the different large language models have different capabilities and different strengths. And
Yeah,
we'll get into it. I know one of my talks is about running your own large language model, and one of the reasons I
right.
wanted to do that is really to understand. By doing that, you need to force yourself to understand the differences in these and kind of some of the terminology and get it up and running. And so then I think it lets you experiment with these. And I'm convinced that everything's general purpose right now. And I think
Yep.
there'll be things like ChatGPT that are general purpose. Claude's pretty general purpose. Bard. Bing is really OpenAI behind the scenes. But
Sure.
I think what's real exciting too is when we get into specialized things, right? And we
Yeah.
get something that's
Yeah.
trained and has a bunch of information about that. That's going to unlock a huge number of kind of interesting applications there. So
Sure. You think
yeah,
about healthcare, you think about science, you think about, other, applications. I was
yeah.
actually chatting with somebody from the Library of Congress last night, and, they have 74 petabytes of data. It's one of the largest databases in the world of information, right? But they're very excited about, what the possibilities are. But let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be talking about at Voice and
Sure.
AI. You mentioned roll your own LLM. So
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Yeah. So this is all about how to run your own LLM, either on your laptop, directly on your laptop. And I'll also show how you can rent GPU in the cloud, right? Fire up some GPUs and run an LLM there. And I think this is all about exploring and understanding LLMs and what we can do with them. There's several things one, in order to run it, I think it's very educational because you need to understand some of the underpinnings of how it works or not. But then you can try. So, like Facebook's Llama 2 in particular, has gotten a lot of hype as being an open source model. And a lot of the models that you can run, you go to Hugging Face, you can download
Hmm.
these, 10 gig files, right? Or
Yep.
20 gigs, sometimes they're even bigger. Um, and then run your own LLM. But some of the interesting things you can see there's a lot of parameters you can tweak and you can see how that works. You can
Hmm.
compare one versus another. There's uncensored LLMs, which is interesting, right? Okay, everybody thinks of how do I break into a car? I can ask it and it'll answer that. But I
Right.
also think it kind of points to where do we, most LLMs that we deal with right now are very general purpose. If you can locally run something and experiment with it, then you can start doing some of your own things. And I think this will lead to companies or individuals think, hey, do I want to go and run use ChatGPT's API or someone else's API, or should I run something locally and control my model? And I don't think there's a good answer right now, but I do
Right.
think it's worthwhile to understand how to run these things locally. And frankly, it's a little bit of right now. It's at the point of fun and experimenting and hobbyist tinkering, but
Yeah.
out of hobbyist tinkering, right? As we've seen, right, some really interesting things emerge. And so I started doing this out of my own interest. And I was like, this is just something I'd like to share. Like what I've
Yeah.
learned, show some examples, what works, what doesn't work, what's hard, what's easy, and encourage people to go experiment with it. What started as an educational thing for me and how to learn, I just want to share with the world.
Oh, I think that's really great. So it's that kind of sharing. That's you're kind of getting at the heart of how and why I do the conferences I do, and how my philosophy. My philosophy is the reason why we open up call for proposals, and we want to hear from people around the world. We want to know what people are learning. And
Right.
that's the speakers that we want, because you want the freshest knowledge of like what people have learned. And then there are people like you and others in our industry that are so good at this. And I think about Noelle Silver Russell. She's great too.
Yeah.
She shares as she learns, almost in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a huge help. She's also going to be speaking at the conference, by the way. Hello, Noelle. But let's also talk about this pre-conference workshop. So on September 5th, we're going to have pre-conference workshops. They're typically 2 hours in length. And you're going to be doing a session on mastering the art of generative AI. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Let me correct you. Mastering AI art. So using
mastering AI art. Yeah. Well, I'm not looking at the title. I was
using
close.
AI art.
I was close. Hey.
It's okay. Yeah, and things like that. We're
Yep.
all like getting thrown all these new terms and things like that. I get them. Anyway, so I've been using the AI art tools, things like my particular favorite right now is Midjourney, although I think Stable Diffusion is amazing. I've been trying, there's some other new ones, Leonardo.ai, and I started doing them just for fun, right? Oh, that's kind of cool. And then I'm the kind of guy, I'm creating a presentation or doing something, and I will spend hours trying to find the right clip art. Right? Because I want it, just because I do think a word, a picture is worth 1,000 words, or even a little icon of something is really important. Now I realize, wow, these tools are really incredibly powerful, not only to just have fun, but for some practical uses. For clip art, they're amazing, right? You can get exactly what you want and a little icon or something there and throw it in a presentation or whatever you're building and do that. And the other thing is just full images, right? Something that's representative of this. A lot of my work in this actually started when I helped my daughter write a paper, her high school senior essay on using ChatGPT in education. She did a bunch of things there and learned about it. I was like, you could create some really cool images that go along with this. So we sat down, literally spent hours like creating all these crazy images. And then the presentation looked amazing. And it was a little bit, I was like, this is a really great tool to unlock being a little more creative in our presentations and using imagery and doing that. And quite frankly, it's a time saver for someone who spends hours looking at clip art or stock images to find something that works. So I think it's, just like we're saying, LLMs will unlock some creativity and productivity. I do think AI generated art is really interesting, as unlocking, essentially you have, I'll say a limited artist, because a lot of things they can't do at your disposal when you want to do something. And then you can build. So this is going to be exploring tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, etc. How to get up, how to get running, how to get started. There's a bunch of tips and tricks about how to, tweak an image, or you like this, but I want to change this. So how do I handle that? I think it's not only fun, it really, that old adage, I'll repeat it again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, if you have a tool now that can create that picture, maybe you can create that picture and you don't need those 1,000 words to explain it.
I think that's really cool. I think there's just such a big interest here. One of the things I find is that I like Midjourney a lot, and I'll create images for articles that I write or posts that I want to make. And it is interesting that I can go and manage to create, I'm getting better all the time. But I also find that people that are already designers, graphic designers, they use these tools way better than I can. They can create images better than I can, right? And I think there's something to that. So I think even for the designer, these tools are, an accelerant, right? So now you can focus on maybe the smaller aspects of an image, right?
Yeah, well, I think Pete, that I was involved with a startup helping kind of artists
Yes.
work in the NFT
Yes,
world and do
absolutely.
some things. So
Yep.
I've talked to a heck of a lot of artists over the last couple of years.
Yes.
And there's ones who are like, running away, run for the hills. But a lot of them are really excited. One, they're really good at these tools,
Yeah.
right? Just inherently. But a lot of them they look at it and they're like, okay, it's another tool in my toolbox, right?
Yeah.
So when Photoshop came out, Photoshop was this amazing tool that you could do all this cool stuff you could never do before. And then tools like Procreate, right? Where you take an iPad and do this amazing drawing. And now you have this AI art, which can be a starting place for where they want to go. And then they build on top of it. So I actually find that a lot of artists are super excited about this. They don't see this as a threat. They see this as a cool new tool that they can leverage and then put their artistic vision on top of and build something amazing. So I think might be a controversial statement to say it's a friend of artists, but I do actually believe that.
I think you're right.
Here.
I mean, it has to be. I mean, I think that there's gonna be a lot to that. I think for art and books and our authors, people are going to, there will be purist opportunities and opportunities to do things that are 100% human, and that there will be a good market for that always, and I think that'll be appreciated. But there will also just be the opportunity then to, for authors to write more books or write maybe more interesting books, or who knows. But it's an interesting time, and both the sessions that you're going to be doing at Voice and AI are really key, and a great example of the type of programming that we have at the conference, where look, this is an opportunity to get your arms around what's happening, and whether it's around generative AI, generative code, or if you're trying to modernize your contact center, it's all going to be there. So Roger, thanks again for being a part of it. Thanks for, making your way all the way to DC from the West Coast. We really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in person. Again, Roger Kibbe, who is a Senior Developer Evangelist with Samsung, but he's going to be sharing his own personal knowledge at this event because that's what he does. That's the kind of guy you are, Roger. We really appreciate it. This has been our guest, Roger Kibbe, with Samsung. He's going to be doing 2 sessions at Voice and AI. Get all the details at voiceand.ai, September 5th through 7th in Washington, D.C. This is the year to get to know AI and get your hands around it. And we're going to have most of the large language models are going to be under one roof with us. So we've got speakers from OpenAI, Google, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Veritone, Core AI, you name it. We're going to have a ton of content at this event, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.